World War II, the most widespread war in the history of mankind, ravaged Europe and Asia. But not until December 7th of 1941 did that war hit home, with a direct attack on the United States. During this strenuous time, President Roosevelt authorized an executive order that forcibly relocated Japanese Americans to internment camps, forcing them to leave everything that they had worked for behind. This is the story of one man who lost everything, only to find so much more.
Well, Mr. Ono, first I want to thank you for coming here and doing this interview with SNJ today. It's an honor and a privilege for me to be able to sit down and talk with you today. I wanted to ask you a couple of questions that you could, share your experience and what you remember. December 7th, 1941. Do you remember where you were when you first heard that Japan had attacked Pearl Harbor?
Yes, I remember the day. On December 7th, I was home, and about 12 o'clock in the afternoon, I got a telephone call from my mother. On December the 7th, she was in church. It was Sunday, and I was living in San Pedro, which is across the channel from Terminal Island, where I was born. But the church was in Terminal Island, so my mother was in church, and on the way back, she had to cross to the other side of San Pedro through a ferry boat. But when she came to the ferry, she got stranded there because the war had started, she found out. So she wanted me to bring her a jacket because she was detained by the immigration people. But she said, bring my jacket for me, but I said, don't you bring it because you're going to be detained here also, so let your buddy Stanley, who is a Caucasian fellow, my buddy that lives right too close to me, and he says, yeah, I can take it for you. So he took it over there. And she came back the next day. She was detained for overnight, and then she came back the next day. My dad at the time was in Mexico fishing, and they came back on the 9th of December. The cannery called us up and tell me to come unload the boat. So the reason why they came to San Diego was the fact that they were in Mexico. They couldn't come out the San Pedro to unload.
So your father was a fisherman?
Yes. They generally go out for 2 or 3 weeks before they come back up. So when they found the war had started, it took them 2 days to come up to San Diego, which is the closest port in the United States. So as soon as they came up there, they were taken into San Diego jail, and the cannery told us to come unload the boat. So my cousin and I, we went from San Pedro to San Diego to unload the fish, and when we got there, lo and behold, everything was ransacked, the boat, not the fish, but the belongings that belonged to the people. Even the machine shop lathe, drill press, all those things were taken away. And even the elements off the stove was taken away. Only thing they didn't touch at that time was they had an immigration sticker on the radio operator's room and captain's quarter. They had a little sticker on their immigration sticker. That was the only 2 cabins that wasn't looted. The rest of it was all looted up. And that's when I first found out that I was different than anybody else. Now, Caucasian people, there's a lot of people that lived in San Pedro because they're generally all mostly fishermen and dock workers. Norwegian big guys were generally dock workers, and Italians, Portuguese, Yugoslavians, they were all fishermen. Most of them were fishermen because Terminal Island is one of the biggest fishing industry in the world at that time. And most of the fishermen were Japanese. And the Italians were, a lot of fishermen are Italians too, but most of them lived on the San Pedro side, not on the Terminal Island side. And since they came back and they were taken into jail, we had to go and unload. And when we finished unloading, I came back to San Pedro again. Before I even got into the house, they picked me up and took me to the police department, And that's when they picked me up. And they picked up all the stuff that I brought, and then I had to sign for all the stuff that I brought back, which were not a confiscated item, but they still wanted me to sign those papers, and they held me there till 1 o'clock in the morning that morning. That's how the first few days started for me when the war started. And until then, I didn't know what prisons was, because you think I was 18 years of age at that time. I had got my 1A notification and was going to college. And at 18, you think you're the smartest guy in the world, you know. I didn't even know where Pearl Harbor was at that time. So, and we were just an ordinary kid, college kid. And only difference was that I didn't look like an Italian who is a Caucasian kid. Now, Italians and the Germans, they were all Axis nation with Japan at that time. But nothing done to them. But I found out different because I looked different. But in your heart, you're still the same thing. You don't change your heart just overnight. But they changed our classification overnight. I was 1A when I turned 18, but when the war started 3 months later, I became 4C. Okay,
so what is the difference? What does 1A mean and what does 4C mean? Explain that to me.
Well, you want to know. You guys, of course, today they don't have drafts. So
no, they don't. No, they don't. So 1A would have been the highest classification?
When you're 1A, you're excellent. Nothing's wrong with you until you get your physical. You become 1A. 4C is enemy alien. So,
wow. Okay.
So within three months, from September to my birthday was September. That's when I turned 18. And in December, it was a couple of weeks later after that, I got another reclassification. It was 4C.
So you went from being at the top of the list in terms of desirability to be right at the bottom of the list.
My heart didn't change it. I mean, I'm still American. I mean, it's no different. So those are the kind of things that we encountered at that time. But even then, I still didn't think I was any different, because all my buddies are still the same. But California at that time was recruiting a lot of people from Oklahoma, Arkansas, to work in the shipyards and aircraft companies. And everything what they read in the paper, they believed. The Hearst paper wrote everything up, and derogatory stuff against the Japanese. So right away, all hysteria developed. And the main thing that, to me, I found out that it was greed more than anything else, the Caucasian people's greed. And they want to grab our property because we built that Terminal Island from nothing to the world's biggest fishing industry, the Japanese people. And the farmers are the same way. The older generation, my folks, they were called Issei, first generation, my dad. We're called Nisei, which means two, second generation. My kids are called Sansei, which is third generation. First generation, the war started, I mean, they're mostly, they're all Japanese oriented, but they're Americanized to a point, but they're not full Americanized yet. They're still, like a half and half. Where the kids are mostly all Japanese. Maybe some of them are leaning more towards Japan, but most of the kids they don't know other country other than the United States, like myself. I don't know any other country, so you're American. So that's the way you felt.
You felt like an American.
Oh, yeah. And you still didn't think any different, even though they gave you a 4C classification, you're an enemy alien, you still feel the same as anybody else. Only thing is your complexion is different, your feature is different, so you get pegged right away. Now, if I was a little bit older, maybe if I'm 24, 25, after I graduated out of college and then went to look for a job, I might notice prejudice then. But until then, I didn't know.
You were still young enough.
I was going to college, but I still didn't encounter any prejudice at the time because we all grew up together. And they were all mostly from a foreign country. The Italians, folks, they're all first generation, and these kids are all second generation, just like us. And we all got along fine. There was nothing wrong with it, So we thought we were all the same thing, except when the war started, right away you were pegged And they said that the government said that we're going to take you inland so that if there's an invasion or anything, that they can tell we can't tell the difference between you, so we're going to move you inland so it'll be safer that way. So that's what the JACL came in there. And they said, well, don't give any static to the government. Do what they tell you to do.
So they sold this to you as a way of protecting you in the event of an invasion, so that they couldn't tell the difference between...
Right. Only thing is, that didn't hold water to me because of the fact that there was more Chinese than Japanese. So,
I see.
So to me, it was just a complete different idea, but the Chinese put a tag on their belt saying, I'm a Chinese on there. So why should they separate the Japanese from the Chinese and just move the Japanese in? So that was all greed. They want to get rid of the Japanese who had a good fishing industry, they had good farmland, and they had the poorest land, but the Japanese people are very ingenuity-wise. They can produce stuff by doing this, doing that, inventing different, just like with the fishing industry. My grandfather came to Hawaii in 1897, I think, and he was there 5 years, and he developed a hook with any barbs on there for tuna fishing. But it's a jig. They call it a jig. You drag it behind a boat, and you can catch a fish. And when you bring it in, you don't have to play around to take the hook off. All you do is shake it, and the fish comes off. So he had invented that, but he wanted to utilize that to catch tuna in mass production. And that's the reason why he sent his son and my dad and 3 brothers in course of 10 years into the United States. The oldest one came to Seattle, 1906, I think it was. My dad came in 8 to San Francisco, and the 3rd one came, I don't know where, but anyway, I think San Francisco, and they migrated down to Terminal Island because that place was being built. Terminal Island was nothing but a rattlesnake island at the time, and there was nothing but a thin strip of island, and out of this island, when it was filled up, that became the fishermen's. There was about 3,000 Japanese people. They all lived on that island, and then eventually, when the war came, there was 9 canneries, different canneries, 9 of them. So it was a big fishing industry. It was the world's biggest fishing industry. So that's how they made their living. But it was under a corporation, because they couldn't operate. They could only, first generation Japanese could never own any property because they could never become citizens. That was a law.
So there was a law that would not allow them to be citizens?
No, you couldn't become a citizen. And so like my folks, what they done, when the first kids were born, their 3 brothers, they put their name on to become a corporation. And we're the one that owned the boat, actually. Through the corporation, like myself. We were citizens.
So what happened next? Then they told you they were going to move you into more inland of the United States. Where did you go?
Yeah, well, first of all, since we were on the water, Terminal Island was right on the water there. It was called Zone A. So we have to move 30 miles inland. So that was Zone B. So I had a cousin that lived in Studio City on Langsham Avenue in Van Nuys Valley. So they got us a place in North Hollywood, off of Langsham, at Violin Avenue in North Hollywood. That's where we moved to. And then we were there 3 months. And then after the 3rd month, another order came through. In February, Roosevelt, executive order, said that we're going to move all the Japanese out of California and all the coastal state. And between Ben Denson and General DeWitt, they were the one that enforced the law, that the executive order that Roosevelt gave, and to move all the people inland. That was in February, middle of February sometime, I can't remember the date. But when that came, right away, we have to move inland. And since the Terminal Island people were the first one, in fact, we had to move from Zone A to Zone B in 48 hours. And what can you do in 48 hours? So in 48 hours, you have to sell everything you got. A big truck will come on and say, look, I'll buy everything in the house for $25. So this is where I find that many people are really greedy. They think you're down and under, so they try to grab something for nothing. And so a lot of people say, no, go ahead. Well, I'm not going to sell nothing. I'll go rather burn it than sell you for $25. So anyway, that's how we were moved inland. But when we were supposed to go to camp wasn't even built, but they built 10 camps that held 10,000 people a piece. In the whole United States at that time, there were only 130,000 Japanese American in the United States. And out of the 130,000, 10,000 were scattered all over the United States, mostly around New York area. And out of the 120,000, whatever the people they moved on their own, they could move out of California, but you can't come back in, but you can go out. And then whoever left, they said it was 110. They more or less, 110 people were moved into these 10 camps. Mm-hmm. And we were the first one, because we were the first one to be moved out of our area. Us and someplace up in Bainbridge Island up north. And we had, we were, I think it was either 1st of April or latter part of March there. I can't remember exact day, but I'm pretty sure it was 1st of April that we were in there. There was only 10 blocks finished, and or 12 blocks finished, and we were on the 10th block. And that's where we went. And as soon as we got there, I got a job as a mail delivery guy. And a lot of people, when they got there, they had volunteers go up there before we moved up. People, bachelors, they took their own car, and they said, we're going to give you a job of building the buildings in the camp. So they're the one that built the rest of the camp to live in. But these were nothing but a 100-foot by 20-foot wide building with tarp paper on it. That's it. There's no nothing, just a knot hose, different places all over. So the sand come blowing in there, and I can show you in the picture there that we even went to the mess hall to get can lids to put can lid over the knot hole. After 2-3 months, the knot dries out and drops down, so you got a big hole in the floor. So the sand keeps blowing in. So we had to go to the mess hall and get can and then pound nail over top of that to keep the sand from coming in. Those are the things we done at that time.
Wow. So here you are. You're a United States citizen, born in this country. You have a U.S. passport. You're 18 years old. You're starting college. You're in the prime of your life.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, you're in an internment camp and considered an enemy of the country.
Yeah.
How did that make you feel?
To me, like they say, it can't be helped. You know, that's the attitude the Japanese had at the time. Well, most of the, because they kept, JACL keep harping that don't bother what they're going to do. Do what they tell you to do. Don't give them any friction. Because I think, to me, I just felt as though that they were pussyfooting the government to give them a better position. In other words, they're soft-soaping them so they could get a better position themselves. Just like that, it's another type of a greed, you could call it. So humans seem like they all have a certain amount of greed in them. And that's the first thing that I noticed, more than anything else. I figured, boy, they're trying to grab our property for nothing. So what they done with our boat, we were all in the camp. My dad, as soon as they took him in San Diego, we didn't even know where he went to. For 2 years, we didn't know where he was.
Your father was not in the camp with you?
Oh, no, not with us.
Who was in the camp? Was it your mother and your brothers?
Every one of the fishermen's husbands, they were taken right as soon as they come in from the fishing. They come back in. FBI was all over the island, and they took them all in, every one of them. In fact, my buddy, the picture I was showing you on the wall there, this guy here, he was born in Japan, and he came here when he was 3 months old, United States. And he graduated together with me, but he was a fisherman when the war started. And when he got out of the, when he came in from fishing, the FBI grabbed him. Now he spoke just like me. I'm a regular. He's a regular. I mean, he doesn't know Japan. He was only 3 months when he came here. He was born in Japan, but he got sent to the same camp that the first generation Issei people went to. My dad got moved 6 times in the course of 2 years, and finally in Lordsburg, what is it, Arizona? Well, anyway, down in the south there. That's where he came from. There to Manzanar after 2 years, with no offense or anything on there, just a complete release.
So for 2 years he was moved from camp to camp?
Yeah, we didn't even know where he was.
And you didn't know where he was. And when you got letters from him...
Yeah, it would be cut out.
There were cutouts in the letters?
So you can't tell what they're talking about.
Well, why were there cutouts? Because they were afraid that...
Well, they would get idea of what they were doing and this and that, so they didn't want us to know anything about that, the life that they had in the camp. And then while they were in camp, the government and the cannery or whatever they done, they got the boat, and they made minesweeper because they were perfect boat for minesweeper. They're wooden hull. They're not metal boats. They're wooden hull. They got nice engines in them, and they were sent to South Pacific someplace. And we never know what happened. We never got it back. Never got paid for. And even the fish that we went to unload that day, nobody got paid. The cannery always have. It was the Del Monte company. They said that they did something. They said, yeah, we paid whoever it was. They're all fictitious. They had the what do you call it? In other words, it's all made up stories. So we sued the government for 70 years or 60 years, and I went through 8 lawyers in the course of time, and they all died off. And eventually, I think it was after the 50th year, this lawyer said the best thing to do is because they cannot bring the case out. The government have to bring it out before the lawsuit could be ironed out. So now something came out that I think it was in the 80s, in 1980 something. I forget what year it was. They said they might be able to do something. So get all the papers together. We try to get all the papers. They don't even know where it's at anymore. We can't find it. None of the papers. So we lost the whole situation that way. But my folks never want to talk about it. He said, I got 5 kids. And I says, I came here, I didn't have anything when they came to the United States. But I got 5 wonderful kids. I says, what more can you ask for? So that's the way he died.
Your father?
But yeah, that was my dad, yeah. And
so all your possessions were lost?
Oh, everything. We didn't get nothing from the government except the redress money, which is $20,000. That was the redress apology from the government, but that was done from the 4th generation group kids. It was a little bit too late. It should have been done when my folks were living. Those are the ones that.
When did you receive? I know it was, I think, in 1988.
88, they started it.
Yes, President Reagan approved.
And then Bush is the one that I got it here, this here. I got it here with me, the paper. So that was a little bit too little too late, because to me, even a little bit of apology would have really helped the first generation people, because they just took it with a grin and said, what can you do? That was the attitude. It can't be helped. Yeah, but they were Japanese. I'm a Japanese. I look like a Japanese, but my heart was American. So that's the reason why a lot of guys that went to Japan to get educated and they come back, they were called kibeis. There are a lot of them. You think that, well, what can they do for the Army service? So, well, they're the one that really helped the United States save a lot of people, because of the fact that they were in there as a counterintelligence, smuggling into the Japanese outfit, report everything to the United States. Those are still coming out yet. Nobody knows too much about that because they're all hush-hush. They're quiet, keep quiet.
So it was almost 50 years later that the government finally made a payment for reparation. How did you feel about that? I mean, it's at this point, many of the people who were
I didn't even want to talk about it, because when I started, I was talking to Alan Woodruff. I said, he wanted me to talk to the Rotary Club. He said, make sure you talk about the redress. I said, no, I don't particularly want to talk about it, because when I start to talk about it, it makes me mad because of the fact that they should have done that years before, and this is mostly for the people that went to the camp. But I said, these are the people that don't know too much about that. They were just born at the time now. Like me, I know what happened. But even myself, I don't even know what prejudice was at that time because I didn't encounter any. But the older group, the older guys like myself, second generation older guys, they know because of the fact that when they went out to get a job, they wouldn't get first chance. They would always be, if there was a guy with an equal education or smarter than the Caucasian guy, he would never get that job. The other guy would get, the Caucasian guy would get the job. They encountered that. That's the reason why they formed this JACL. And like, if I was a little bit older, out of college, I would have probably think a little different. But I didn't think that way. I was just an ordinary American lad at that time. So to me, everything was greed. Anything I came to me was, boy, these guys are really trying to get something for nothing, you know. And that's what I thought at that particular time.
What was life like inside the internment camp?
Mandalay was the first one, so everything was tight. In other words, you couldn't own a camera, you couldn't own anything, you couldn't go outside. But at the Heart Mountain,
so you could not leave the camp?
Oh no, that was barbed wire fence with that. There was 8 or 9 towers of the machine gun sitting right towards you.
Wow.
Oh yeah, with searchlight. And in fact, this was about a year after we were there. The administration was taking food that was coming into the camp, and they were selling it on black market outside the camp. And people found out about that, so they went to protest. So the army barrack was about a mile away from the camp. They called the army up, they set up the machine guns up. So when the people went to protest, they start firing, and they all started to run, and then 11 people got shot, and 2 of them died. In fact, one of the guys, I was there that night, and we went as a Boy Scout group and to protest. And I was a life scout during my high school or junior high school days. But even then we went to protest, and then we were running away from it. The guy running next to me, he got a bullet in his back, but his bullet was right next to his spine. They couldn't operate on it, but he carried that. He never died or anything, but he used to be bothered during cold weather and stuff. But other than that, he was okay. But,
and the protest was because they were selling on the black market the food that was intended for the
people were getting all that food that was coming into the camp for the people. They would take certain things and they would selling it outside.
Wow.
So these are the kind of stuff that we encountered. When I first went there, I was a mail order delivery boy. We were getting $8, $12, $16, and $19 a month pay scale. $8 were people that were making camouflage nets. And just an ordinary blue collar worker, like I was delivering parcel posts, I was getting $12 a month. And then after half a year, I got another job because they found out that I was an electrical engineering major. So they said, can you use a motion picture printer? Oh yes, I used to run them all the time, 16 millimeter. So he said, can you run? I said, sure. So they gave me a job, and I got $16 a month, which means $4 more a month. And then doctors were getting paid $19. And after half a year, I got appendix.
Appendicitis?
Appendicitis, but they only had they didn't have any hospital, and they had a mess hall that was converted into like a hospital. So that was one of the early ones to get operated on. And I got operated from a Japanese doctor, and he was only getting $19 a month operated on me. And I have all the records here. My son got when the government released the records, we had to buy that, but my son bought it, and I got it here with me if you want to see that. All my temperature, everything is recorded on this. In fact, what the medicine they gave me, it's all listed in there. And I was operated on the mess hall table.
How long were you in the camp?
3.5 years.
3.5 years. So you entered when you were 18.
18, I was 21 when I got out of there. I came here on a VJ day. I reached Jersey here. The only reason I came here was to visit my folks. They got out before I did. They wouldn't release me.
Do you remember when you found out that the United States had dropped the atomic bomb?
Well, to me, it just like anybody else. I didn't have any but I thought that it stopped the war quick. You know, I said that was one good thing, but at that time, I didn't even know what atomic bomb would do to people. You know, in other words, we know it was deadly. Only thing is, how bad of a result would you have from the atomic bomb radiation problem? I mean, those kind of stuff never entered my mind. Mm-hmm. But to me, it just seemed as though at that time it said, well, at least it stopped the war. Yeah.
If you would have maintained your A1 status, and the government would have asked you to fight.
Oh yeah, I would go.
Would you have fought?
Oh, you know, first thing when we come here, I had to Newark do the physical. Mm-hmm. And as soon as I went there, I have bad eyesight, so I had to go back the second time. I have to come over back to Bristol again and get a notification for my eye prescription, and I have to go back and get my second physical, and I became 4F this time. 4F is physically, handicapped mm-hmm. with the eyes. So I wasn't. They didn't want me in the service.
But if you had to fight,
oh yeah,
you would have done so.
In fact, you heard the 442nd in Hunter?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. The 442nd was a Japanese regiment,
they
highly decorated.
They didn't want them to be integrated into the Caucasian unit. They wanted to be segregated to prove to the world that we're loyal, in fact, more loyal than anybody else.
And they fought in Europe.
And Asia.
Were awarded many Purple Hearts.
They're the most highly decorated outfit in whole United States history. And
so we're talking about what became of some of the people and their children who were in the camps, and from what I understand, they went on to be very successful, many of them. Well,
out of this 130,000 Japanese American that was here in the United States, you could put that in the football field. Okay? Out of that, how many famous guys come out of there? You have so many of them that you could count so many of them. You can take Mineta. He was Secretary of Transportation in 9/11. Okay? He was 13 at Heart Mountain at the time when the war started, 13 years old. Now, he was Secretary of Transportation, but he was Secretary of Commerce before that. And then when Bush was in there, he was Secretary of Transportation. At 9/11, when the airplane hit that tower, he stopped all aircraft from flying. That was Mineta. He was only 13 in the camp. Okay? You remember O.J. Simpson's trial? Mm-hmm. That guy, judge on that, Lancito?
Yeah.
Okay? His mother was in Heart Mountain also. Mm-hmm. And he married, and the son is Judge Ito. Now, there's another one of the guys that was in the camp, out of this few 130,000 people that was there. A guy from UCLA, 3 months older than I am. He came to Manzanar, same camp I went to. After 9 months in the camp, he was sponsored by the Quakers. The Quakers sponsored this kid that's going to college, and he went to Missouri, got his bachelor's degree. In Minnesota, he got his master's, and Harvard, he got his doctor's degree on radar. He was an electrical engineer specialized in radar, but he was a mathematician. So the government said, can you make a plane that cannot be hit by any aircraft? So he's the one that designed the U-2 bomber.
Wow.
And after that, the government, a few years later, said, can you design an airplane that cannot be detected by radar? So he developed a stealth bomber.
Mm-hmm. You had told me a story before about a World War I veteran.
Oh yeah,
and how he was treated. Share with me a little bit about how you felt when you saw how this veteran who had fought, he was Japanese, American who had fought in World War I.
He was on my dad's boat, in fact.
And he was an American citizen?
American citizen. That fish picture, the big fish picture, those two beside my dad, they're all American citizens. And they're young guys, they're all fishing. There was a crew of 18 on that boat there. And when they came up, when they put into San Diego, these new recruits, young recruits, come up with a bayonet, keep poking the guys to go into jail. So he said, I fought in the First World War. He said, you don't push me around. But that made any difference. They still got thrown in the camp. Of course, they were released right away. But when he came to Manzanar, he was pegged as agitator because he was helping the first generation people. They couldn't understand what was going on. So since he knows everything about what's going on, he was trying to explain to them. So the government pegged him as the Black Dragon. And he was one of the ones to be pegged as an agitator. And then that sort of turned him off more because of the fact that here he's trying to help and then he's getting pegged as an agitator. So when the questionnaire came, I guess he must have answered no on both of them. I'm not going to help you out anyway. And then he got sent to Tule Lake, where Tule Lake was. But after Tule Lake, I don't know whether he went to Japan and exchanged a person or what. I mean, I don't know whatever happened to him. But I read in the book later on that he was exonerated from being pictured as but other book that I read, he said they finally found out that he was doing good for the people. So it's according to how you take it and which way you look at it. But he was on my dad's boat the last trip.
But the irony of here you have a man who had risked his life to save our country in World War I, and then in World War II,
he's placed into. So that's the reason why he's
a concentration camp.
Yeah. Yeah.
Terrible. When were you released from the camp?
I got here on VJ Day, but that's a long story on that too. But I don't know whether that's worth talking about or not. There was a guy that had a Oldsmobile that he had stored. Now I had a brand new Chevrolet. I stored mine for half a year when I went into camp because I figured, man, it's a brand new car. I'm not going to. I'll keep it when I come out. $845 I paid for at that time, the whole price. And the government wanted to give me $300. And I said, no, I'm not going to sell it for $300. So I kept paying for the storage. Well, I mean, you're making $19 a month or $16 a month. You can't afford to be paying storage. So I said, oh, finally I sold it for $300 to the government. But this guy kept his Oldsmobile. He had a 36 O's. So 6 of us we got paid $25 to spending money, and we had a ticket from Salt Lake to Philadelphia. So we come out, and between Ely and Tonopah, we broke down. And we have to have ration at the time. To buy gasoline, we have to have ration. Everything was ration. Sugar was ration, everything was ration. So we were coming out. We had 2 water bags hanging in there was no air conditioning in those days. We had 2 water bags hanging in front of the radiator. So we know what was wrong with it. We could hear the banging noise first. So we took the pan down, took the bearing, one of the bearings was bad, so we took the bearing out, took the piston out, put it back together, used one of the bags, put water in, and we saved the other water, put the other water in. We saved 1 bag, and we started riding. And man, it was a little rough first, but then as you hit 40, 50 miles an hour, man, it's smooth right out. So we must have gone 35 miles, and all of a sudden she went bang, and finally quit, and it blew the cap, oil, overhead valve, a cap on there. That cap blew right up on top of the hood, and it finally stopped. Well, what we did wrong, after we changed, took the piston out, we forgot to take the ignition wire off.
Oh, the spark plug wire.
The spark plug wire.
Okay.
So what had happened in there, as the gas is going into your pan,
it's not
ignited.
It's not combusting, so you got a buildup of gasoline
so
that finally just blew up the whole
and that was it.
engine, and that was that.
3 days. 3 days in the desert. We almost ran out of food, and we got no place to go. And since the gas is rationed, and that stretches about 8,500 miles, and nothing there, a gas station or anything. They tell me we were 35 miles from this gas station when the guy finally stopped. And he was going to Manzanar delivering food, big semi-trailer. He said, I'll tell the people that you guys are stranded out there. That was on the third day. 3 of us had to sleep underneath the car, 3 up on the top of the car or inside the car. And when your turn came to sleep on the outside, you got coyotes howling not too far away from you.
So for 3 days you slept in the desert.
Yeah.
And then finally, who came to rescue you?
The gas station guy came, and then he towed the car up to his garage, and then the guy that owned the car stayed there. But then we took a taxi and went to Salt Lake, and from Salt Lake, and when I got here, now I don't know how many days I spent on the road there, but when I got here, it was exactly on a VA day.
Now, what brought you to Philadelphia? I mean, of all places, you were...
My folks were here first.
How did they get here?
Well, they came here because they said there was work here, you know. So as long as there was work, it was no better than in a camp, but there was no wire around this place. There was no fence around there, you know. So
yeah.
You were free. You were free to go. Your pay was lousy. Yeah, I never worked here, so I can't tell you, you know, how it was. Because as soon as I got your visit, I went to town and I got a job right away.
So Seabrook Farms here in southern New Jersey was one of the companies that was very much interested in reintegrating.
No, they weren't interested in integrating. They needed a helper.
They needed labor.
Labor. Because they had a contract with the government. There was frozen food. They developed this fast freezing frozen. They were all going into the Army for Army and the Navy for the supply for the servicemen.
So the government being one of the largest customers of Seabrook, and Seabrook then leading a very large labor
because
force.
They don't get enough
they
people.
couldn't get enough local people, so then they used...
From here,
they were given jobs.
Yeah, so they were getting it from Jamaica. They were getting from our people. You know, came over here, and then when the people from Europe start coming, they start bringing in the Estonians and displaced person from them to come over here. They were using prisoner of war from Germany who was working here. So it was all integrated. It's almost like San Pedro, where I was born. It was all Italians, all different ethnic people living together. So
your parents came here to work, and then you came here because your parents were here to visit.
I came to visit. Yeah, I came to visit them, and then I stayed with them for a while.
Did you like the area? Did you like it here?
Well, you don't. In other words, you don't have prejudice at all out this way. They didn't know any different than anybody else, I guess. But only time when I came across once is when I first went to work for Joe Deal. The first day I went there, a lady came in, and she wouldn't talk to me. And I couldn't understand why she didn't talk to me, because she was looking at me, but she didn't say a word. I pulled the radio out of the car, and I says, I'll have this call you. What is your phone number? She still doesn't answer me. I said, what's wrong with this lady? So I'm not talking to you. Go get your boss. So I went and got Joe Deal to come over. And I asked Joe, I said, what's the matter with her? She says, no, she don't like, no, I'm sorry. So she said, she has something up with her. She didn't, I guess, tell her exactly why. She didn't want to talk to me. So when the radio was finished, she came back again, and I started talking to her. I says, it's so much, for the radio, and I put it back in. And I started talking to her, and I says, why is that you don't want to talk to me? He said, I lost my husband in the war, and you're Japanese. I said, well, how do you know I'm a Japanese? I said, do I look like a Japanese? Oh, you people, you're all in Seabrook. I said, well, how do you know? You just take it for granted that I'm a Japanese. I said, I could be a Korean, I could be Chinese. I said, but you're just taking it for granted I'm a Japanese. That's why you're prejudiced against me. And I said, yeah, I'm Japanese, but I can understand why you're so. When I finished talking to her, something was still wrong with the radio. It wasn't working right, so I had to take it out again. And she came back again, And this time she was a completely different person, you know. So I asked her, I said, well, at least you're talking to me now. He said, yeah. I said, I'm sorry that I acted that way, because he said, I just took it for granted that you were one of the Japanese. I said, even though you're Japanese, I guess you understood what I was trying to tell her, in that sense that just because I look like somebody else, you know, that you're blaming me for it, just like in the start of the war the same way. Your heart's...
Sure. Do you often think about how your life would have been different if the Japanese did not attack Pearl Harbor?
Yeah, I thought about it many times, but I just take it for granted that this is the way it's supposed to happen, and I got two terrific kids, so I have no complaints right now. But at the time, I said, boy, if I went to college, because I always wanted to work on instruments, you know, like, but today the theory is different, but I was fascinated with meters and stuff. So I was going for electrical engineering, and I was always thinking about developing different type of instrument for measuring things. And I was thinking, well, I would probably pursue my electrical engineering, but my kids, they're both doing well. And both of my kids went to Johns Hopkins.
Mr. Ono, where did you meet your wife?
I met her here when I came to visit, and she came here to visit about a year later. And that's when I met her. And then we got married in 1950.
And where did you live? Did you live in what town?
Bridgeton. I've been in the same house for 65 years now.
Same house, 65 years.
And my daughter was born there. My son was born here in Seabrook.
Mr. Ono, you've experienced and lived through things that most of us could just only imagine. You know, what message, what is it that you want the younger generation to learn from what you've experienced?
Oh, I don't know. The way you like somebody to treat you, that's the way I would like him to treat me that way.
Do you have any resentment at all against the government for what they did?
Oh, yeah, I have all kind of resentment, but I just hold it to myself on that one. What can you do? This is what they say. Shikata means it can't be helped.
Say that again?
Shikata. That's a Japanese term.
Means it cannot be helped.
That's the way this first generation. That's the reason why we never said anything about this kind of stuff until 70 years later, because we didn't have time to be thinking about that kind of stuff. I was going to college, but I have to sacrifice my college time and to send my younger kids, my brothers and sisters, to school, you know. And so you have to live.
Well, Mr. Ono, I definitely want to thank you for your time in doing this interview.